lot, so I apologize for that. Anyway, guys, I wanted to ask you guys a question. First of all, good morning. Good morning. Hashtag B1. Put hashtag B1 in the chat if you're Black First. Black First meaning that we put our community number one ahead of everything else, ahead of political parties and or gender, sexual affiliations, stuff like that. B1 means you're Black First. So Black community comes first, whatever that means for you. Hashtag B1. Put that in the chat. So I want to ask you guys a question. This is not a question meant to imply that I know the answer. I do not know the answer. I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. You know, it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. And so, basically, I'm not asking this question. The question I'm asking today, I'm not asking this question because I am, trying to be an ass. I'm asking the question because I'm really trying to find out the truth. I see some of your questions in there. I'm going to try to focus because if you give me answering other questions, I'm going to get my ADHD will kick in and I'll start talking about all kinds of stuff. Y'all know how I do. Y'all know how I get. So let's keep boys focused today. I need your help with that. Let's keep boys focused. I want to ask you about Black Lives Matter. Somebody asked this question this morning, and I was curious about the answer. I'd like to just kind of know. Black Lives Matter raised millions of dollars, probably tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions. When every time there's a police shooting, Black Lives Matter gets a ton of money, and there's nothing wrong with raising money for your cause. I think that the question that I have and a lot of people have is, what is the cause that you're raising money for? Where does the money go? What are you doing with this money? And so anyway, I did a little bit of research today. I'd like to do more though. I'd like for you guys in the chat, if you have a detailed answer, a detailed response to this question, please share. Please share that detailed response. So I went online and I tried to look up, what did Black Lives Matter do with the money? So I said Black Lives Matter money raised. I just typed that in, and I found this article in BuzzFeed that was really interesting. They said they raised money for a group called the Black Lives Matter Foundation. And it's fascinating because this Black Lives Matter Foundation, this is just one of many things that happened. So this is not saying where all the money went. But basically they're saying that this organization that millions of dollars was given to was actually supporting the police. I kid you not. They said the Black Lives Matter Foundation, a Santa Clarita, California-based charitable organization that has one paid employee and lists a UPS store as its address, has a very different goal. Quote, bringing the community and the police closer together. And so the founder of the Black Lives Matter of the organization, the Black Lives Matter Foundation said, I don't have anything to do with the Black Lives Matter global network. I never met them, never spoke to them. I don't know them. I have no relationship with them, said Robert Reyes, the founder of the Black Lives Matter Foundation. He said, our whole thing is having unity with the police department. So I'm not saying that they're on some shady stuff. This is not what I'm trying to imply, because I don't know enough to really make that kind of insinuation or push in that direction. I just would like to know. I'd like to understand things a little bit better. So this organization raised millions of dollars, and I honestly think they were trying to pull a rope-a-dope on the public. I think, why would you, if you're a police organization, why would you name yourself the Black Lives Matter Foundation? Like, why would you even do that? Unless you're trying to just basically take advantage of the fact that people throw money at a problem and they don't think about where their money's going, right? And so, to some extent, that puts the burden on those of us who might donate to kind of look and see, what am I donating to? What am I giving money to? Where's the accountability? What exactly is my money being used for? And I think that's really the bigger picture here. It's not so much about where this particular money went, but it does kind of speak to to a couple of things. One is that that there's this interesting thing that kind of happens when it comes to social justice and raising money. And I'm writing something down so I don't forget to bring this up, so my ADHD doesn't confuse us. There's a documentary I think you guys should watch called Poverty Inc. Poverty Inc. Poverty Inc. is a documentary. I believe it's still on Netflix, in which they basically talk about money being raised, off of charitable causes in Africa. All those companies that will put a poor little African kid with flies on his face, and a big stomach, like on the screen, and it's like this poverty porn where they will, show you how much these people are suffering, and $5 can feed a child, or $1 a day can feed a child, that kind of thing, right? Well, what they argued in Poverty Inc., which was quite fascinating, is they said that actually these foundations don't really help anybody hardly, in Africa, on at least not on a level that is significant. They actually they can keep people in poverty, perhaps inadvertently, but they can keep people in poverty. And if you watch the documentary, the basic argument that they make is that when they're going around, basically preying on their suffering, using their suffering as a fundraising tool, as a fundraising vehicle, as a marketing mechanism, it allows them to raise billions of dollars from all their rich white friends, right? So I live in France, and I run a foundation, and I'm raising money to help poor kids in Africa. So I'm marketing to other white people, other rich white people in first world countries. They're all donating because they all feel sad because they see the poor little black kid. They have white guilt because they know how much money they've stolen from black people. And so I get this big pile of money, and I say, I want to help the kids in Africa. So how can I do that? Oh, I know what I can do. I can give them free shoes, right? Nothing wrong with free shoes. Okay, so let's see. So we're gonna do free shoes now. Now here's what we would do if we really wanted to help the people in Africa. We would go to Africa, take the money that we've raised, and we would go build. We would support businesses by people owned in those countries, so they can build and run a shoe factory, so they can manufacture shoes for their community, right? We would support them, by basically subsidizing and investing in infrastructure so they can actually feed themselves and take care of themselves. But they don't do that. What they'll do is they'll say, no, I've got a friend in Montana who makes shoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this donation money. I'm going to go and pay, full price, overpriced for his shoes, make him rich. He's going to get rich, and he's going to manufacture a bunch of shoes. And then we're going to go to Africa, and we're going to just dump a bunch of free shoes onto the poor people, right? So what then happens though is that, what if you are a person who lives in that country, and or let's say pick any African country, that has a poverty issue, and what if you actually are a person that really has a shoe company, or you want to actually sell shoes, like you actually want to build a manufacturing facility, create jobs, and develop an economy? Well, you're going to be out of business, because why would anybody in the country buy your shoes when they're getting free shoes being dumped on, out of an airplane from a bunch of white people in Paris, right? So what it does is it keeps them poor, and it keeps them unable to really feed and build themselves. That's why, and that's true on a macro level and a microcosmic level. That's why, like with my children, when my kids come to me and they ask me for money, because they know daddy ain't broke, they know daddy got a little bit of dough in the bank or whatever, right? So they'll come to me and they'll say, I need money. Can you give me money to do this, this, and this? And I tell them, like, you're not a charity case. I'm not a welfare office. I'm not doing that much charity. I'll do a little bit of charity just to be nice, but so I don't hurt your feelings. But I'm not going to do charity because charity is not sustainable. Instead, I make investments in you. I will invest in you. So you tell me what you're doing with your life. You tell me how you're building something that's going to be productive, something that's going to sustain you and put you in a better position. And then I'll tell you where dad can come in and make an investment, right? Because I really want to invest in you. I want to see you succeed. So you might be able to come and get me to give you $50 out of charity, but I might invest $1,000. So if you really want the big money, you go for the investment, not the charity. That's why a lot of black celebrities, I say to black celebrities, like, stop doing charity, stop doing simple charity for black people. Like, do some of that, but make investments in black people. Like Jay-Z, for example, I wish I could say to Jay, like, okay, I know you gave, $100,000 to the Boys Club, but then I saw where you invested $10 million in Uber or whatever the company is. Give black people the 10 million, give the white people the 100 grand, right? Give the Uber guys 100,000 and give the black community that 10 million. What black people got to do to get in line for the 10 million? We don't want the little children money. We want the big boy money. Give us the big boy commitment, not the little baby commitment, right? So where do I get with this? Well, you go circle back to Black Lives Matter, because this is global. White people are white everywhere. They do white things all over the world. It's not just in the United States. If you want to understand how how your racist liberals operate, and the conservatives. I don't even talk about the conservatives or the Republicans or the Trump supporters because they're not even part of the dialogue. They're not getting 90% of the black vote. So now one day, if Trump and his crew was getting 90% of the black vote, I'd be talking about them the most, right? I talk to people that owe you something. I talk to people that owe you something for your vote. I talk about the people that get your support. I talk about your friends because your friends are the ones that are showing up asking you for things, not your enemies. Your enemies are like, screw you, we hate you, we don't want to deal with you, right? So I don't even talk about the Republicans. And people say, well, why don't you talk about the Republicans as much as you talk about the Democrats? Well, because the Republicans don't get 90% of the black vote. Now, if you show me where the Republicans are getting 90% of the black vote, then shit, hell yeah, I'm gonna talk about the Republicans because now you owe us something, right? It's like if I work at Walmart, then Walmart owes me a paycheck. I'm gonna talk about Walmart if they don't pay me, right? But Walmart can't say, well, Kmart didn't give you any money and Costco didn't give you any money. Why don't you talk about Costco? Well, because I don't work at Costco. Now, if I go to work at Costco and I give them 40 hours of my time, then I'm going to talk about Costco because they're the ones who owe me money now, right? So you don't talk about people that don't owe you money, right? Or don't owe you something in exchange for something you've given them. When people say, well, why don't you talk about Trump more? I'm like, why would I talk about Trump? I don't care about this guy. I'm not thinking about this guy. I'm thinking about my community and where our resources are going. I'm not thinking about Donald Trump. I just do not care. I do not fear him. I do not. Donald Trump is a white person's problem, honestly. There's nothing you can say about the fear of a Trump presidency that's going to make me say, oh my God, we got to get him out of office. Why? So I can get a better pimp, right? Well, so somebody else can pimp us instead of Trump. I don't give it. I don't care. I don't want to be pimped at all. So anyway, let me keep going. So let me dig deeper on this Black Lives Matter money thing. There's one interesting thing. So I went to the blacklivesmatter.com website and I went there to try to understand what's going on. If you read blacklivesmatter.com, or I think it's also .org, I think they have both URLs. It's very fascinating. They have a lot of information about Black Lives Matter. They don't hide their agenda. They take advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't read. They take advantage of the fact that people just don't read. They don't look into what they're being a part of, what they're supporting. So if you look at Black Lives Matter, what you really see is that they're not anti-black. They're not. They're very. I think they can be pro-black. They're seen as pro-black, and really what they reflect is the universality of what it means to be black. There are some black people who are conservative, some black people who are liberal, some black people who are straight, some black people who are gay, some black people who are male, some black people who are female, some black people who are traditional into family and patriarchal structures, some people who believe in matriarchy or believe black men, black fathers are not that important or whatever, right? Feminism, whatever it is, right? There are black people who are pro-choice, there are black people who are pro-life. It is what it is, right? So if you go to Black Lives Matter, what you find is that they're not, I don't see them as an anti-black organization. I just see them as an organization that supports blackness if it fits specific conditions. All right. It means that if you're black and you are transgender, LGBT, if you're a feminist, etc., if you're pro-choice, if you're basically a white liberal in blackface, if you are a black person who identifies heavily with white liberal ideologies, then Black Lives Matter is the group for you. If you don't identify with white liberal ideologies, then this organization does not fit with you, right? So, for example, if you believe that the black man should be a part of and the head of a household, then this doesn't work for you. If you have an issue with the gay agenda, then this is not an organization for you, right? And I think that this is important. They make a very good point on this website. They kind of show you that, look, when you want to label a group of people as racist, because they don't agree with you, I think you have to really be thoughtful about that and think about what that means. So, for example, I hear people all the time tell me that conservatives are racist. And I say I get a little confused by that because I'm like, well, wait a minute. If you go to the black Republican convention or you go to the White House when Trump has Black Trump supporter day, there's tons of black people there, right? And these are like real black people. They're not pretend fake nothing. They're just black people who happen to have a specific ideology, right? And then if you say the liberals are completely racist, then you could be contradicted by the fact that if you go to the DNC, you'll see black people all day, every day, everywhere, all the time. So what really is interesting, where the racism comes in to me, is that everybody's trying to claim blackness. Like it goes back to when Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black, right? That was an offensive statement because what he's trying to do is he's trying to do what white people have done all around the world, which is this imperialistic colonization of black people as their own. Like, no, we own these Negroes. They're ours, right? And really, that's just a deeply offensive statement because if you really want to really be honest about it, black people are diverse. So here's what I see. When somebody says Republicans don't like black people, I say no. Actually, Republicans don't like black people who are liberal, right? They just don't. They don't like liberals. Period. Right? That's what it is. Right? They don't like white people who are liberal. They don't like black people who are liberal. They just don't like any liberals at all. Right? They like conservatives. If you're black and you're conservative, then they might let you marry their child. They want to hang out with you. They want to be your best buddy. Right? Same thing with the Democratic Party and the liberals. The liberals, they don't like black conservatives, right? They're the first ones to call them Uncle Toms and everything else, right? But they love black liberals, right? So if you're into the gay agenda and into into the feminism and the pro-choice stuff and all that, like if that's all your thing, then that works for you. But if you're like, for example, a black person who is deep into your religious faith, you might be a little bit confused because liberals are really big on kind of removing God from a lot of areas of our lives where I know a lot of black people who aren't. So I don't know. I'm not really here to tell you which box you want to put yourself into. I'm more of a fan of just not being put into a box. I don't work well in boxes, because I feel like that restricts my humanity. So one of the things about Black Lives Matter that's really interesting is that if you look at where they raise money, they raise money through a group called Act Blue Charities. Act Blue, blue meaning Democratic Party. The Republicans raise money. If you're a Trump supporter and you give money, they raise money through an organization called Win Red. Right? So red meaning Republican Party, right? So the Republicans are red, the Democrats are blue. So Black Lives Matter is a blue Democratic Party sort of organization. It's like a spinoff, right? It's a mobilizer. Their goal is to basically find black people who identify heavily with a lot of liberal issues. I did a deep analysis on Black Lives Matter. We went through the website and the whole mission statement. And one thing I'll say is that they don't lie to you. They're not overly deceptive in terms of the way the deception comes in the sense that when they use the term Black Lives Matter, everybody grabs it without really thinking about what the organization itself means because they just agree with the concept that Black Lives Matter. But really, if you read their website, they tell you clearly what they represent. And if you read through their about statement, one thing that you'll notice, for example, is there's almost no real mention of the black male and his importance in the black family. The conversations are all about ending patriarchy and dealing with this sexual discrimination within the black community, and that triggers me a little bit because I'm accustomed to hearing people accuse black men of toxic masculinity, things like that, and I think that is a little bit of an issue, right? Like I'm not toxic with my woman. I treat my black woman well, but I do believe that my black children need their black daddy up in the house, in case somebody comes up in here, right? This whole idea that households should be led by the mother only, that's a BS concept. That's why the R. Kellys are getting a hold of your little girls, because you're assuming the father isn't necessary. I grew up in an era where I saw strong fathers, even on TV. James Evans Jr. on Good Times was the kind of father where I was like, I like that. I like a father who lets people know, if you hurt my children or hurt my family, I'm going to kick your ass, right? But then you've got people that really believe men and women are the same, like that gender is a figment of our imagination or whatever it is that they think, and I'm not one of those people, right? And so I will say that that there's a big difference between being a person who's, for example, affiliated with Black Lives Matter or the black wing of the Democrat or Republican parties versus being a person who is truly, truly deeply rooted in solving the problems of blackness. That's why when you guys come in, first thing I do is I say #B1 we're black first. And what that means is that everything else has to be secondary, right? Because if I come in and I say, hey, I'm a black Democrat, y'all, then my blackness is coincidental to my being a member of the Democratic Party. Me being a Democrat matters more than me being black, right? Or if I say I'm a black Republican, then being a Republican means more than me being black, right? Or I'm a black player for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, then being a Dallas Cowboy means more than me being black. So what I would say is flip it. Again, it depends on what your position is, right? If your goal is really to solve problems in the black community, then that has to be your what you call in business. That has to be your rock, right? It's like in business, there's something called quarterly rocks that our business, for example, we have every quarter. We lay down like what are our 3 top priorities, like what are the most important things that we have. Those become our rocks. And where does that come from? Well, because in your life you have rocks and you have sand. So imagine if you have some rocks you're trying to get into a glass. The glass represents how much free time you have. So you're trying to get rocks in the glass and you got sand to put in the glass. So let's say that you fill it halfway up with sand, right? And then you start dropping rocks. Well, you can only put in a couple of rocks because there's not much space left after the sand takes up half the glass. But what if you do it the other way? What if you put the rocks in first and then you pour the sand over the rocks? Well, the sand is going to get in where it fits in. The sand's going to fit between the rocks. The rocks, though, will be guaranteed a seat on the airplane, so to speak. The rocks are given top priority. So what I'm saying is that blackness has to be your rock. Right? Blackness has to be the thing where you say, I'm putting my black community in the glass first. And then if you want to pour in the sand, you can do all that shit all day long, right? We got all the sand pouring in, Democrat, feminist, LGBT, the immigration, immigration reform, whatever your other things are, you could pour those in as the sand, but they got to fit in between your blackness. That's why, for example, for many years, I always said, I'm not a finance professor who happens to be black. I'm a black man who happens to be a finance professor, right? Order matters. What you put first matters. Priorities matter. So I think that for Black Lives Matter, I'm not going to say that they can't claim to represent blackness as much as anybody. I mean, they have lots of black people that are on here. There are plenty of black people that are part of these communities that identify heavily as LGBT and, whatever it is, right? I think those people should be acknowledged. I don't think they should be ignored. I think you have some wonderful allies in that community. But but even though they can clearly claim some degree of blackness, you have to understand it's the liberal issues that matter first. They are liberal first. They are Democratic Party first, right? If you go and you really read down their page, they just do a really good job actually of explaining exactly what they represent. They ain't lying. They ain't going to pretend like, hey, we really identify with Boyce Watkins' ideologies and we're just like him. No, they're not lying to you. You just got to read. Same thing I wanted to tell Megan Thee Stallion when she talked about how bad her contract was. I was like, well, did you read it? Did you read the contract? Did they let you read it, or did they fool you? Did they trick you? Did they make you sign a contract blindfolded or force you to sign something you didn't want to sign? No disrespect, but I think those questions are relevant. If you go to their page, if you go to blacklivesmatter.com and you click on About, they got a section called What We Believe. And there's a really telling part where they actually say, they use a lot. I'm really an expert on white liberalism because I taught on college campuses for 27 years, and I noticed over time how a lot of universities are basically indoctrination factories for white liberal ideologies, right? And then I started realizing as I got older, I said, wait a minute, I don't know if I identify with all this shit. Some of this stuff don't make no damn sense to me, and so that's when I started reflecting on the fact that I was seeing this stuff so much, I thought that this was normal. And I don't think it's normal, though. I don't think it's healthy for black people. It doesn't solve the problems that we have in the community. So, for example, here's an example. Let me give you a clear example. One problem we have in our community is that a lot of our little girls being, victims of sexual violence from like older men, or sex trafficking, things like that, right? And so what I do is I connect that to this idea that somehow Cardi B is a feminist hero because she's teaching little 7-year-old girls how to suck a dick, right? I'm like, how is it that that you're okay with sexualizing the shit out of little girls, but then you're trying to solve a simultaneous problem of these little girls wanting to get in the cars with grown ass men when they're 13 years old. If you live in Chicago, you've seen it. It happens, right? If a grown man with some money in his pocket shows up at the playground looking for a 13-year-old, there are 13-year-olds that will get in the car with that man. So I just didn't want to go to the household and say, what happened to you? Because I have a 13-year-old in the house. She wouldn't get in the car with a grown man because she's constantly being told by me and her biological father, we work together to protect her, she's constantly being reminded of her value. She's being reminded that we're here to protect you. She's being reminded of what kind of men to look out for. I coach them on sex trafficking. I tell them we have a whole, almost like a stop, drop, and roll. Remember stop, drop, and roll? We had a stop, drop, and roll routine. I'm like, look, if a man comes and gets you, here's what happens. Do not let him get you in that van. If he tries to put you in a van, do not, even if he says, if you don't get in the van, I'm going to kill you. Do not let him get you in the van, because once they get you in the van, then it's over. I said, you scream, you fight, you bite him. I said, let's practice. And so I pretend to be a predator. I swear to God, this is literally what we do. So I literally will be like, I'm going to get you. And then the little 10-year-old will be like, and we practice this, right? Because I believe that it's my job as a black father to protect my black daughters. And so my issue is, I have to have a real issue or a real problem with people that think that somehow you're a feminist hero when you have, Lizzo simulating the sucking of a man's penis on TikTok, which is an app for children. Like, she's done that. She got on her knees and pretended like she was, doing what grown folks do, apparently, which we know. Y'all know how sex works, right? But the 7-year-olds, maybe the babies, maybe we shouldn't show that to the babies. Maybe the second graders don't need to be getting lessons on this. Maybe we can teach them something like, I don't know, like how to read. I don't know. Maybe like learning math might be more, more applicable than teaching them how to do stuff that grown women do, right? This is not, and then when people flip it into oh, you're sexist, or oh, you're anti-woman, it's like, no, I'm not anti-woman, I'm just anti-child molestation. How about that? How about I'm anti-child abuse? How about, I think that if a grown woman is rapping about her wet ass vagina in front of children, I see that no differently from having my child listen to R. Kelly sing about his dick. How, seriously, how would you give me a yes or no? Give me a yes or no in the chat. I'm going straight Uncle Boyce a little bit here, because I got to lay this out. How many of you would consider to be child abuse if R. Kelly came to your house, or any grown man, any man with a penis came to his house and was singing in front of your children about his HAD? How many of you would consider that to be a problem, right? Or would you just consider that to be an expression of his sexual freedom? Really? I mean, and then you're like, look, man, put your dick away. Don't be singing to my child about your dick. And he's like, you're oppressed. You're suppressing my sexual freedom. You're slut shaming, right? So some of these ideas are just stupid. Some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. Some of this stuff is the result of how maybe an oppressive society creates people who are just fucking crazy, and they're mad. They don't know quite what they're mad about, and so they run along with any issue that sounds revolutionary and different and whatever. And that's kind of an anarchist sort of philosophy. It says, we don't like the system, we don't like the structure as it is, so we're just gonna burn things down and destroy everything. We're gonna destroy families, we're gonna destroy churches, we want to destroy schools, we want to destroy businesses, because we don't like none of this shit. I'm not a fan of that. I'm a person who says maybe we need to address the issues and fix the issues, as opposed to just burning down the entire family structure in America. But that's my personal philosophy. You don't have to believe that. You don't. And so I will just say this. Look, when you talk about, let's go back to the money part. I'm not here to do an audit of what Black Lives Matter does with its finances. I did do the research, and I did a little bit of the research, some of it, as much as I could do. I haven't done it all. I'm really curious and open to hearing, if anybody has a statement specifically of what has been done with the money, in numbers. I'd like to know. We gave $10 million, to black-owned schools in New York, no strings attached. That's fine, but I think it's you have to understand what money does. Money does give you power. Money allows you to have influence. So if George Soros or the BLM movement or whoever it is that's funding all this, if they're giving money to things, I personally think that any money given to the black community needs to be money with no strings attached. Any money that doesn't have, or few strings attached. How about that? Or the agenda must be very clear on what the money is for. So, for example, if I give money, Alicia and I have a foundation. Just like Black Lives Matter has a foundation, we have a foundation. And our agenda, we have our agenda. Our agenda is very open. Our agenda is to support independent black-owned schools that are going to educate black children who are going to become assets to the black community. Black, bliggity black. So it's all out there. It's plain and simple. if you want our money, you're going to have to educate black babies with black people to pursue a black agenda that's going to help the black community. I think that with Black Lives Matter, they should do the same thing, right? If their agenda is LGBT or whatever, they have a right to that. But I think that people should understand that and know that, so that you don't just get excited because somebody's giving money to black people. Because if you let people give you money with an agenda, then what happens is you can inadvertently turn yourself into a slave. Right? It's like somebody coming to your daughter and saying, "Hey, I'll pay your tuition, girl." Right? You know what that means. You know what it means if a guy's like, "Hey, girl, you having trouble, paying for classes? I got you. I'm gonna pay for your classes." Right? Well, if your daughter's smart, she's gonna be like, "Well, what do I got to do to get this money?" Or maybe she'll just say no. And so I think that black people, because we're so desperate for money, have to be very careful about who we get money from, because a lot of people use money to control you. They use money to pursue their agenda, to indoctrinate you into whatever battle that they're fighting. And I can't sit here and pretend like they're the only ones who do it. When I donate money to things, I'm donating money because I want to have influence on what's happening with that organization. So when I donate money because I'm B1 Black First and I care about the black community, that's it. Then that's what you're getting. That's my agenda. So there's nothing wrong with having an agenda, but you must understand that people almost always have some kind of agenda, and you need to just know what it is. Taking money from anybody who offers it for any reason is an absolute no. It's an absolute mistake. And that's why, even as I ask about Black Lives Matter and what they're doing with the money, I want to make sure that we separate the fact. Two things I want us to realize. One, we should make sure we know the difference between giving money to Black Lives Matter versus giving money to black people. A lot of white companies give money to Black Lives Matter because they think that they're giving money to black people in the black community. No, when you give money to Black Lives Matter, you're giving money to Black Lives Matter. You're giving money to the Democratic Party, to George Soros, to liberal causes, right? That's fine. If that's what you believe in, then that's good. But that's different from giving money to the black community, okay? And giving money to black business owners and black families and having that money really hit the streets where people really are able to use it for whatever they want to use it for. Those are two totally different things. And I think the second thing is that even as I ask, like, well, what happened to the Black Lives Matter money? I'm really talking about